You're listening to the Steve Freeman Podcast, the real, raw truth about the pursuit of success in music, business, and life. Here's your host, hit songwriter, multi-platinum selling producer, and serial entrepreneur, Steve Freeman.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast. It is so good to have you here. While you're here, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We just found out today we are in Apple's top 30 podcasts for the music genre. That is all thanks to you guys, all 200,000 of you guys every month that are listening to this podcast. Means the world to me, so thank you very much. So keep rating, keep reviewing, keep subscribing for sure. If you're not following me on social media, do that as well, at the Steve Freeman, everywhere on all social media platforms. And as always, the podcast today brought to you by the Artist Development Academy. If you are an independent songwriter, producer, aspiring artist, music industry professional, you want the truth, you want the information, the guidance that it takes to make it in the actual music business, not the music business and the big front that everybody puts out there, do us a favor, go check out artistdevelopmentacademy.com. All right, we are going to jump into today's episode, and I am so glad to have this guy here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We have not ever really spent a lot of time together, but I've followed Ray on social media for a long time. I love what he stands for. More than anything, I absolutely love his music, and I've used him many times in a lot of the videos and a lot of the talks that I'll do at conferences and things about fan bases and how to grow a fan base, and people complaining about there not being real country music anymore. And there's a lot of blame that goes on around that. I happen to blame the fans, because if you supported independent artists, there wouldn't be such a thing. So I want to get into that, but I also want to welcome Ray Scott to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Like I tell my mom, I appreciate that.
Well, it is good to have you here. I'm going to start. There's a lot I want to get into with you, but I want to start with one question, Ray, because I think you're in a position to answer it. Yeah. What the fuck happened to country music?
I think it's corporate radio, consolidation, I think is a big part of it. A lot of people say, Garth and Shania and whatever kind of did their part in ruining the real thing. And there's part of me that will say, okay, well, in a sense, yeah, because of the crossover that it made into pop and just a way bigger audience. Now, that was good to bring listeners to the audience, but it was also something that created, I think, a need from other labels to try to emulate that success. And they started bringing about more artists that they were trying to cross. It's one thing to cross over naturally and organically. Right. It's a whole other thing to plan that from the beginning. And over the years, we've just seen a lot of people that kind of brought those sensibilities into country music to try to cash in. And because of now years ago when file sharing and all that stuff was happening and sales started to wane, I feel like big labels and everybody else involved realized, okay, man, we got to make more money here. We got to figure out a way to make more money. So, and they realized too, appealing more to kids,
right,
is a big way to do that. Well, if you do that, you can't really do, in my opinion, what country music was. Growing up, I wasn't as attracted to it. I grew up on it. My dad was a singer, and so I heard all the stuff all the time. You realize as you get older, country music is an adult music. It's about real life and real heartbreak and real everything else that, is probably kind of designed more for a more mature audience. And, it's not for kids. But they realized after a while, it's kind of like the Taylor Swift thing. Here you got this little girl that's kind of blowing up a little bit, and they realize, oh gosh, now she's great at what she does. It's a smart kid. But, when a label sees or a management company sees or whoever else sees the fact that, hey, she's packing in, I don't know what the numbers are, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, most definitely.
what that consists of is the kid who loves her and mom and dad who got to take her, and so everybody, when they start seeing dollar signs, they realize, okay, we're limited to how much we can make.
Right.
If we keep it authentic.
Mm.
So we got to throw in these younger elements, and we got to, and part of it too is just evolution. I think it's been, country music has been, it's been evolving and changing for a lot more years than the ones we're complaining about.
Right.
But, there was a time when, when a true country purist was not so keen on what Johnny Cash was doing.
Right. No, that's true.
And, so look, it's an argument, I think, and a debate that folks will continue to have from here on out. I just realized, the type of music I moved to Nashville to write and record is not what they're doing these days anymore. Now, there are some flashes of it here and there. And I think part of that has been created by a true demand for it. But
I've started to notice that too, that there is starting to be more of a demand. I often say a lot of times that the industry, the country music industry, decided, and I'll give you that too. I mean, you can go back to Garth Brooks and Shania, but when I think about Taylor Swift, I don't blame Taylor Swift for where we are. I blame the labels and the industry for thinking that it was a wise move to turn the industry over to 12-year-olds.
Well, if and the thing is as a record label, if you get used to a gold album being a big success, then all of a sudden you sell one that goes 10 times platinum, it's going to ruin you.
Yeah.
Your expectations are going to change, and you're going to want to start pursuing that instead of this anymore.
Right.
So, and I can't, even in my experience with the label, that's kind of what, that's kind of when they started doing these 360 deals with merch and everything else. And, where they're trying to take part in more revenue streams because of the lack of sales. Now, as a big label with all the money that you're spending on trying to break these artists, I get that. I understand why they feel like they need to do that and they want to do that to see a return on their investment. Because at the time, I mean, even back then, this was 15 years ago, it still took, I think in upwards of $1 million to truly break an artist. So,
well, I'll tell you this. Now, I have the launch plan for a label that you're very familiar with. I'm not going to say the name because that'll lead to me having to tell how I got it. Now, I'm not ever going to reveal that information, but I have the launch plan for that label. Would it shock you to believe that when they sign an artist, their allocation over the first 3 years is $4.2 million?
It wouldn't shock me at all, especially now. No, not at all.
And I guess one of the things I've never quite understood is I think one of the reasons that the labels are dying and that they're basically obsolete and they're just a high interest credit card, more or less.
Oh, big time.
And
still got a hell of a balance.
You still got a balance on yours.
Balance, yeah.
Well, it's funny that they never think to spend less.
Yeah.
Because they're going to spend $4.2 million and maybe one out of every 5 or 6 artists that they have even have a chance of recouping that or having the success. Matter of fact, when I was sent the plan, they had launched 3 artists under that plan. Mm-hmm. And not really any of them have succeeded to that point. And I've always wondered, it's like, now with last week, you've got the Grammys. And you've got an artist like Billie Eilish, who won 10 Grammys, recorded the album in her bedroom, in her brother's bedroom, and her bedroom, did all the vocals sitting on her bed in their family home with $3,000 worth of equipment. Yeah. It makes the label system look a little stupid.
It kind of does.
It
really does.
Now, I mean, you could argue that she needed that to get where she is today.
Yeah. But you don't have to have that. I was just talking to someone on Twitter the other day, a friend of mine, that was talking about yet another. I think they were talking about the tracking room. Just got bought, and they're going to turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Put it down, which is commonplace nowadays in Nashville. And I don't know if the Tracking Room was one that I would consider like an old historic landmark or whatever, but still, it's a place where a lot of great things have happened. But I just said, as sad as it is, and I hate to see them go, I said, but the business we're in now, dude, it's almost stupid, especially if you're an independent, to go and spend the kind of money that it takes to use a room like that, unless you got the mom and daddy deal or whatever. Right. Because your return on it is almost always. I mean, look, hey, I don't spend a ton on making music these days, but I know still that most of the money that I'm going to make is on touring and selling. I'm a glorified cotton salesman out there. Right. You don't make money on music the way you used to. So it's kind of, technology has created a world that where we can make, a good sounding record for way less. So there's just really no need to spend that kind of money.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's funny the way that side of the industry is going, and to watch it having been a progression. You won't remember this, but you and I actually met about 15 years ago. It may even been 16 years ago. I think it was either 2004, 2005 at CRS. Yeah. And Paul Worley invited me up to what I couldn't believe was a Warner Brothers thing, because it was the smallest fucking hotel room in the Renaissance. Yeah. And I walked in, and at the time, Paul was, and I don't even remember her name, but he was all about this young female artist they had just signed. I think her name was Lauren
Lucas.
Lauren Lucas, that's right. And everything was about Lauren Lucas. And I was up there in the hotel room, and then he goes, we're going to bring up somebody we just signed. He's going to sing a couple songs for you. His name is Ray Scott. And you got up there and you sang songs, and I was standing at the back of the room, and I was like, wow. I mean, that when I heard you, that is why I moved to Nashville. That is why I started writing songs and producing records, because I loved country music, what I knew as country music and how I defined country music. And I sat in the back of that room wondering, this guy's phenomenal, but is radio going to play that? Yeah. And
we learned later on, it was a pretty tough march uphill, but I was inspired. What comes out of me naturally is what I grew up on in the 70s. There's a little bit of the 90s country thing in there, just because I fell in love with 90s country right before I moved to town.
Right.
But what comes out of me naturally tends to kind of be a little more of a throwback thing. And I think when we went to radio with it, especially with the song My Kind of Music, it was, it had that retro sound to it, and some of them loved it, and then about a little over half of them wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I think part of it because it sounded old, it didn't sound like moving forward.
Right.
And, some of them used the excuse that I was name checking artists that they didn't play anymore. They didn't want to remind their listeners that, hey, we don't play Waylon Jennings anymore.
Right.
And I do understand that. But I knew even back then, Warner was cool enough to let me make the record I wanted to make with my buddy Philip for the most part, and Buddy Cannon was in on that one. But we had resistance at radio with it. We went into a second album recording situation, and so they start kind of trying to push all these other ideas on me and other people's songs, and trying to pull me stylistically a little further towards the middle and things like that, which happens, man. It happens to a lot of people. And
play the game.
I was just a guy at the time who was like, man, it just ain't worth it. I can't do this. I'm not physically capable of going in there and singing in any different style. And I also wasn't a guy who was really all that good at recording something that somebody else had written. Not because I didn't like it. I heard a lot of songs I liked, but I'm not a guy who, this is not a good example because I don't put myself on this level, but, say take Jack Nicholson as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
When you hire that guy, you're hiring Jack Nicholson.
You know what you're getting.
You're not getting a guy to go in there and completely change his whole identity and delivery and whatever else. It's just another version of him.
Right. He plays one character.
And in my situation, I'm just a guy. Look, I mean, my approach to singing songs or writing them, lyrics, or telling stories is a very conversational thing. It's not hung up on a really strict, straight up melody line sometimes. And it was just hard to find songs that not only that I loved, but because, I mean, back then, the top tier songwriters would tend to hold on to their top shelf stuff until they knew you were going to be successful. So it was tough, and I just decided, guys, just let me go. If this is what we're going to do is go back and forth with this crap all day long, just let me go. And we tried for a while to finally get out there. And once Hendrix came in and took over, they did let me go. And you think losing a record deal is something that's crushing to an artist, and in some ways it is, because you're not back at square one, but you just lost a lot of momentum.
And that's what you fought so long to get
later,
to.
Too, is that you're a little bit tainted in the industry, and nobody, other people don't want to take a chance on you, because it's like, well, Warner signed him and they failed at radio, so why would we, that kind of thing.
Right.
But at the time, I was so happy to be out of there, just because I was going to go back to at least making decisions based on my own brand and my own control. That it was not a big deal. I was happy to be gone. It does, but the one thing that I learned, and you learn these things obviously through experience. If you're an artist who has marginal success and then you don't have a record deal anymore, man, this town, the booking agencies, everybody else, man, management companies, unless you just got somebody that you're working with that just loves you, man, they turn their back on you in a heartbeat. You were you were going to be a big deal 6 months ago, and now it's like, well, who the fuck is that? And that kind of happened to me. It happened to me a long time ago, and I got over that. Still living in this town, or at least near this town, you're still somewhat affected by by what's going on at the moment, and I'm years removed from that now. But there's a degree of relevance that they place on your name, and that's based on their philosophies here. That's not based on the people out there that like what you're doing. So it's like, well, hey, everybody here might have forgotten about me, or don't think that I'm worth my salt, but guess who's making a living without their fucking help?
That's one of the, which is freaking awesome. To me, there's nothing better than looking around and seeing, you and Ward Davis and Cody Jinks, and
a good friend of mine. Ward played keyboards for me back then.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ward's like the little brother I never wanted, man. I just talked to him a couple days ago.
Well, it's so funny to me that, and I want to ask you about this because I know you're out on the road, you're out there playing. What is the feeling and what you're hearing from fans when you get, because that's one thing, Nashville has no idea what real people want.
No, they don't.
Nothing. So when you get out there and your
kids won't, I think.
Well, it's because they're hiring kids.
Yeah.
I keep telling everybody Belmont's the cause of the decline of the country music industry, because they graduate these 21, 22-year-old kids that are cheap to hire.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, Tammy Sue's got 100,000 followers on Instagram. She knows what's cool. Let her decide who we're going to sign and what kind of music we're going to put out there. And they always forget the one caveat about that, though. Yeah. And that is that Susie hates country music.
Exactly.
And she has no idea. I mean, I said the other day, their country music knowledge starts with season 1 of American Idol.
Yeah. And in a lot of respects, I mean, to their credit, they that's their experience. That's the age group they're in. So, okay, it's like growing up. When I did, I mean, my experience started with Willie and Waylon and all those guys. And I consider that to be the greatest era.
Right.
You know, and I was lucky to grow up then, in my opinion. I mean, as a matter of fact, I had an old publisher, plugger guy back at Universal that told me a few years back, he said, Ray, man, if this was the 70s, you'd be a millionaire. You know, because I am kind of that throwback guy. And then there's a lot of people that love that stuff. Now, I realize, though, growing up, I'm also influenced by, you know, some of the hard rock of the 80s and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, now it doesn't come out necessarily to where you hear it right away. But so everybody is basically a product of what they heard growing up and their influences. And I remember, it's, you know, we're becoming the old guys that are like, well, music today just isn't what it was when I was a kid.
I know, I feel that way.
Every generation feels that way.
Well, I do, but here's my thing about it. Yeah. And I was trying to explain this to somebody else, the best way I could explain the way I feel about it. Every so many years, because I'm a huge car guy, right? So every few years, you know, you have your different evolution C version of the Corvette, right? And it may look different. It may take on a little bit different shape or a little bit different form, but it's always a Corvette. It's always a brand. Yeah. My issue with what they've done to country music is it's not a Corvette anymore. Yeah. There's just no semblance or recognizability of what's underneath the hood.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what this generation wants. Maybe, you know, but to me, there are plenty of other radio stations. There's plenty of other outlets where you can get that. I guess I've never really understood why we had to change country music. There's room for other form. I mean, it's why I quit writing songs.
Call it something else. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Call it what it is. I mean, you know, it's pop music. I mean, hey, I'm a big Maren Morris fan.
Totally.
But you know how country I think she is? Zero.
Exactly.
Hey, and you know, and that's fine. But don't take up all the playlist space at country radio for that kind of thing. And then that's kind of been my bitch about it. And that's not, you know, and that's not me saying, hey, leave some room and play my songs. I know that I'm not even playing that game anymore, and I haven't been for a while. I don't have any anger at radio for not playing my songs. I know how it all works. And I'm thankful that through social media and whatever else, you know, there are ways of getting it heard. My thing is, it's just, man, you know, in this situation, there is a need to put labels on things, in my opinion, because that's why the whole genre thing started, you know.
Right. You
got to define what it is, you know, I mean, and these days the lines have gotten so blurred, and there's a lot of people that think that, well, that's evolution, and it's great to combine all the sounds, and sometimes I don't think it necessarily is. And the fact that, you know, the fact there are so many people out there right now. Cody Jinks is selling out stadiums or, you know, just whatever without any help from radio. That to me just proves, I mean, this movement going out there involving Cody and Ward and all those guys. You know, and I consider myself part of that bunch, even though I'm a little older, I've been around. But, you know, that is proof that there is still a huge audience for this type of thing. And I just think they need their fair share of, you know, and thankfully the internet allows that to be heard. You know, there is all the streaming services, everything else. I mean, it allows that to be heard. Okay. And that is the positive side of those, you know.
Well, and you can start to say, I tell artists all the time, if they're like, you know, what's the one thing I can do, you know, especially in country music, if I really want to be successful. And I'm like, pack up right now.
Yeah.
And move to Texas.
Either that. I mean, just go play, man.
Yeah.
Texas, the great move to Texas is great. I got a friend, David Adam Burns, that did that a couple of years ago, I think, and he's having some success on the Texas charts, and I think he's happier than he's ever been, you know, because I think he is finally kind of tapping into a crowd that appreciates and understands what he's doing. And I feel the same way. It's been a tough road in Texas for me because, I can't really necessarily move to Texas.
Right.
But, and it's financially, it's a long trip down there. And when you're, there are a lot of people down there that are familiar with me, and are fans, but, in Texas, it's a different ballgame. I can't afford to drive all the way to Texas and take $500 for a show, and be able to come back with anything in my pocket. I got bills to pay. I got my own label to keep afloat, that kind of stuff. So, but you're right. There is a lot of really great, true, authentic, raw, organic stuff coming out of Texas, and there's stuff coming from other places too, just little random pockets here and there.
Well,
I played in Tulsa a couple weekends ago, and I wasn't aware, but Tulsa's becoming quite a music hub too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think too, a lot of it has to do with the difference between, if you're talking about the label system versus independence, a lot of it too, when you think back about the group that you say that you're a part of.
Yeah.
When you think back to the 70s and 80s, the idea was not, let's get a song on radio so we can become famous.
Yeah.
The whole mindset was, okay, if that's a tool that helps us sell tickets and get out in front of people, because it was totally built around the live experience, and it was totally built around connection with fans and actually shaking hands. And there wasn't that label instituted thing that they came up with, that there needed to be this huge buffer between the artist and the fan, so that made the artist look bigger and seem bigger.
Build up the mystique.
Yeah, exactly. And keep them as separated as they can, because there are so many artists right now. I mean, if you want to call them successful, I mean, by the numbers thing, you could say they are successful.
Yeah.
And you go try to find out where they're playing, and then you realize they don't play live.
And a lot of these artists are successful maybe because they've had a number one song on the radio or something like that. But when you look at how much money they're making as opposed to what their balance is,
exactly,
it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So they may, they're doing pretty good, but they still owe the label $4 million. So they're not making much until that gets recouped, and that's really kind of it's bullshit. I mean. That to me just speaks loudly of someone who just wants to be famous and doesn't necessarily have the burn and desire in their heart to go out and speak their truth and entertain people. And that's what I loved about the old camaraderie of the 70s guys. That when Willie went down to Texas and told Waylon, "Come down here," this is that whole deal, man. That was just such a great shot in the ass in this format. And then you got the Outlaws album becoming the first country record ever to go platinum.
Right.
And that says something. I think we are definitely in a period right now where there's the yin and the yang, and some of this stuff that they're playing on the radio, man, I mean, they're packing out some pretty big venues and whatever else. So more power to them, if that's what the kids are liking. But we need something that will get us just as excited about going out and seeing somebody. And, hey, look, I play smaller venues a lot. I do a lot of acoustic stuff. To this day, man, I am still, like my last run, 2 runs ago, I went out in the Midwest and I played 3 markets that I've never played before.
Really?
I started off in Columbia, Missouri, and then, man, I played Kansas City, I played Tulsa and Joplin, and I've never played in any of those cities before. Part of that is due to just a disconnect over the years and not having, the radio success that would suggest, hey, he can go to any town he wants and play, and we know he's going to pack them in. It's been a slow kind of rebuild in a lot of ways, because I had some success, and then, you hear crickets after the label deal goes away. And so I ended up, getting some stuff happening in Europe, thankfully, that kept me alive. Did a couple of publishing deals along the way. Sirius XM is really the way that I was able to see a little bit of a resurgence, and to start, getting some more recognition out there.
Right.
So it's been an interesting road in that respect, and nobody's road is ever the same. But you go in these markets, and I go into markets now. There's a lot of people out there that have been with me since day one, and they know that this EP I'm about to release is my 8th project in the last 15 years. There's some people who I played for in Joplin, Missouri the other night that never heard of me in their life and became fans and went and bought 6 CDs I had for sale. And I love that. That's my favorite.
That's
thing.
The goal, right?
Yeah, and my favorite thing to do. I mean, I love playing in markets where people are familiar. I mean, but one of my favorite things to do is to go into a place where I know they don't know me from Adam, and do a show for them if they're listening, and just watch people kind of be converted.
Right.
Because it's a different thing, man. And it's nice to see people come up and say, dude, where you been, man? Never heard of you, but God, now I want to go out and buy everything you got. And man, that is what makes a guy like me excited to get up every morning and write a new song, and to record a new EP or album or whatever else, and go out and play for people. Because the rest of this business and some of the things that you're up against in this business are enough to make a lot of people want to say, fuck it, I'm done. And I've seen a lot of people do it, and at the end of the day, I'm just, hey, whether people like it or hate it, I'm doing it pretty much exactly the way I want to do it.
Well, and is that not the value?
By your own sword kind of thing.
And would you really want it any other way?
No, I got a lot of friends in this industry who have had some big success because they played the game with the big labels. They were lucky enough to get the synergy going with everybody early on and have some radio hits, play that game. And there's a few of them now that are getting a little bit older. I won't mention any names, but they're I
think I know exactly who you're talking about, and I won't say either.
But they're at a stage where it's like, okay, man, it's starting to feel a little bit cheesy for me to do these songs that were such big hits 10 years ago or whatever. And I told somebody years ago, my songs are not ass wiggling songs. I can do these same songs when I'm 60 as I can,
right,
as I do when I'm 35. And that's the thing. I mean, there's some people I know that are out there doing songs that they're sick of doing, and the whole thought of having to keep doing them to stay, successful over the years is something that just, gets under their craw pretty well. But at the same time, hey, it's success. You choose that.
Right. Well, and the price that you choose to pay.
It is the price you choose to pay.
Is up to you.
It's a careful what you wish for kind of thing.
Sure.
And some, but yeah.
So you've got the new, I was looking at your website this morning, you've got the new record that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, it's an EP. I have released, I guess, 5 full albums, and this will be the 3rd EP. And it's called Nowhere Near Done. And that's basically just kind of where I'm at, there's still a lot of writing taking place, and just, I'm still going out there and playing for new crowds. I'm going to play for a couple of new crowds in Europe coming up the end of this month. So you're going to be in Austria. You're going to be in Switzerland. Yeah. So there's always something to look forward to, man.
Do you think, I said it a long time, you alluded to it earlier as well. Yes, country music evolves, but I also think that it's circular.
Yeah.
And I said a while back that I think we're at maybe 3-4 years ago, we were at the bottom of the circle, and it's starting to come back around.
Yeah.
And because I do think there is this overwhelming need and a fan base out there that wants real country music. Now, and I have to say, when I say real country music, to me, it doesn't even have to be quote unquote traditional country music, but it has to be true to the roots. We've always been known for storytelling. Life lessons, storytelling. And when you listen to something, you can really take away from it. And I never forget 4 or 5 years ago, I got called into my publisher's office, And this is quote unquote what they said to me. Steve, we need you to stop writing great songs and start writing songs we can get cut. And that was it was almost in that moment that I realized I can't do that because those aren't the type of songs that I want to write. And luckily, I think that circle's starting to come back around. And because you're seeing it firsthand, I mean, obviously you're going to Austria, you're going to Switzerland, you're playing new markets, like you said, that you've never been in before, in front of crowds that didn't know necessarily who you were, but they were at those venues to see what it is that you do.
Yeah.
And that to me says there's a demand.
Yeah, there definitely is. And to speak on what you were just talking about, I've never had a publisher say, my last publisher was Universal a few years back. They were really cool to me. I mean, at the time I was going through a divorce and some things were happening, so I wasn't in my best space. I did write a handful of my favorite songs while I was there.
Sure.
One of which I just had on The Ranch on Netflix.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen a lot to an independent, but, the whole idea of writing songs and, great songs or whatever you consider a great song, for me to sit down, I want to get whatever I'm doing, I got to get excited about it. Or it ain't going to end up being any good in my eyes or anybody else's, I don't think. So that's always been kind of the assignment writing thing. Is one of the things in the earlier days of songwriting and co-writing in Nashville that I've got co-writes that I've enjoyed over the years. But one of the things I've always aspired to and done a lot of over the years, especially more here in the last 2, 3, 4, is single rights. This whole new EP of mine is all single rights, and I've got some of my biggest songs, or most popular songs anyway, have been that too. So the whole aspect of coming in at 10 a.m. and doing the co-writing thing, it works to an extent, but it's not always guaranteed. And I've found that, some of my best work, some of the stuff that I enjoy playing the most and that I feel the most connected to are things that, they might come to me at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm the kind of guy who, if I've got an idea and it's coming and it's flowing, I ain't going to save it for a writing appointment I have next week. I got to get it out done when it happens. I learned after years of doing that sometimes those things go away. Sometimes you'll take it in with a co-writer you may not know too well, and you'll give that idea to them and they like it, but it ends up being something you don't like as much, or not necessarily your vision for it, but you don't want to piss them off by saying, yeah, dude, I know you've had 10 number ones, but this is fucked. We can't do it. We can't do it this way. This is not the way I saw it. You don't want to come off like the snot-nosed little jackass that doesn't know. How dare you? I've had, number one hits. I'm going to say, well, it sounds like number 2 to me.
Do you think that might be because every time you enter that room, you're there to write a Ray Scott song and they're not? Yeah, probably. And that's just because of the way I'm built, and that's something that, for myself personally over the years has really painted me into a corner, especially when it comes to playing the game. And I knew that a long time ago. And I'm okay with it. I've been okay with it for a long time because you just can't, it's a whole square peg, round hole thing. You can't force, I think after a few years, the people, and I don't have huge numbers of folks, I think, that are fans or know who I am, even, especially now that we see a new generation kind of forming. But the people that do get what I'm doing are just folks that just get it, and they're fans of it. They like the wit. They like the twisted way I might say something here and there. It's not all based on all the main ingredients that make a song a hit. It's just, hey, I grew up in love. I love John Prine. Okay. Now, how many big hit songs has John Prine had? But at the same time, man, the folks out there that love John Prine, they love some John Prine. Man. Right. They know every word.
Because they locked into what he does and who he is. And so I would like to be one of these days remembered as a guy like that, way more over than someone who just had a whole bunch of hits on the radio, and so hopefully if I keep doing things the way I'm doing them, at least I know at the end of the day, whatever legacy I leave will be one that was on my own terms, so the folks that dig it, the folks that don't, and then you move on and you're not here anymore. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
That's right. And and really at the end of the day, don't you really only give a shit about the people that care? Yeah,
exactly. Charlie Daniels has got a book my manager Brian gave me, and it's very a thing that he told. I forget the exact situation or the exact quote, but what happened was, I guess it's years ago, he was playing a gig at a bigger venue. It wasn't sold out. There were maybe a lot of empty chairs out there, and there was a journalist lady, I guess, talking to him afterwards and interviewing him or whatever, and asked him, well, I noticed there were some empty seats, or she made some mention of the fact that the place wasn't full, and he said, well, honey, I'm not playing for the empty seats, And that's prolific. If you think about it, there's a whole lot in that little statement. You got to take care of the people who take care of you. There's a number of folks out there that support me to the, just to the end, and they're excited about every new thing that comes out. And man, I'm an extremely lucky, blessed guy to have those people just in my life, and that follow me, will drive for hours to come see me in a room. I might play in a new room at some place that we're just sort of trying out in the middle of like West Virginia. And there may be 20 people there, but I know that 5 or 6 of them might have driven 6 hours to get there. And it's the case everywhere we go. So, it's all part of that building thing. Not every night is going to be that mind-blowing, holy shit, this is why I do it night.
Right.
But those other nights are going to make you really recognize the good ones. And,
what are your expectations moving forward, getting ready to put this new EP out? Like when you sit down and think, okay, it's time to put out a new record.
Yeah.
Why do you put out a new record? What's the expectation level for you?
Well, honestly, man, I mean, my expectations are to just, for one thing, I wouldn't put out a new record if I didn't have something I thought was worth putting out. I've been on a little bit of a roll in the last couple of years. I think I've evolved some. And the thing is, you might have some people that like your early stuff better. There's always going to be some folks that say, dude, your first album's my favorite. And that happens with a lot of artists. But in my case, if I didn't feel like I was getting better, or at least changing directions in some kind of a quality way, I probably wouldn't do it. And so my thing is, I think, well, hey man, maybe in this new set of something or new set of songs, somebody out there that's never heard of me before might hear one of these and think, well, hey, this is cool. I'm going to go back and see what else he's got, it's to me, it's also a means to keep working.
Right.
It's a means to keep the sets fresh. You got to do the stuff that folks know, of course. But like at the front of this year, I made it a point to try to, and it's so hard to do because you get so used to playing certain songs and you think, gosh, if I don't play that, is it going to feel wrong, or somebody going to get mad or whatever? And, I mean, look, there's always, no matter what you're playing, there's always somebody comes up at the end of the night saying, well, God, I was hoping you'd play, whatever. So, you can't please everybody in that respect, but, it's been an age-old thing with artists. Artists love to, as a songwriter, your favorite song is the last one you wrote.
Yeah.
And, or, unless you wrote it and it sucks.
Which happens more so than the other way around.
Right. Especially if you're doing a co-write, you'll finish the song for the sake of finishing the song. But
right.
You're like, oh yeah, wipe your ass and move on,
I like to think that I hope and pray that I haven't written my favorite song yet.
Yeah. Well, and me too. But the great thing is here lately, like on this new EP, I've written what I know is, in my opinion, one of my 5 best.
Really?
That's on this one. So, I mean, yeah.
Because I got to tell you, Ray, I can think back and I can literally name 3 times when a song has literally stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
The first time I remember it ever really happening to me was Holes in the Floor of Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Wariner. One of the other times was, and this was maybe 3 years ago, I was scrolling around on Facebook, which I swore to God I was going to get the fuck off of Facebook because I couldn't stand it.
It's so hard, dude. It's like
it is.
It's like the crack rock.
And I was on Facebook. And for whatever reason, you and I were friends on Facebook, and I hadn't seen anything from you in a while. And then all of a sudden, I saw you posted a link to a video. And I clicked on it, and it was one of the 3 times I Ain't Always Thirsty.
Oh, yeah.
Literally stopped me in my tracks. And I remember thinking to myself, as a songwriter who's had success in this town, that if I can't write that, I don't want to write anymore.
Yeah.
Because that song is just, it has to be on my list of greatest country songs.
Well, thank you.
Of all time.
And you know what? It's one that I'm really proud of. But here's something, I wrote that song as a result of that divorce, and Universal owns that song, or at least half of it. Okay, I've got a co-pub with them. To this day, they haven't gotten anybody to cut it.
Which is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And, honestly, man, after I left the label, hey, they're all about who the new and exciting people are. And I don't honestly know how much it's even been pitched. But, but it was also very indicative of the times we're living in, the types of songs that they knew radio would play. So they're doing their job best they can do. So I have no bitches or gripes about it. What it is just, recognizing, and that's one of the reasons that especially after I left Universal, and that's been at least 6 years ago, maybe more now. I just, man, as far as trying to get anything really going, songs cut or whatever out of Nashville, man, I just backed away from it. I thought, man, what I do, I'm going to just stick to what I do. And maybe every now and again, if I write something that sounds like it's accidentally commercial for these times, I'll send it to so and so. I got contacts.
Sure.
I mean, I can send it to Cindy Foreman over there, and I love Cindy, man. And if she likes it, maybe she'll try to pitch it.
Right.
But outside of that, I had, that's when I started doing more single rights. I think I just sort of subconsciously shifted to wanting to just say, hey, I'm going to write these songs, and whatever I love the best, I'm going to record it myself. I'm going to put it out there. And I know not everybody's going to like all of them, but these are the things that kind of come from me, and they show me at 100% of who I am anyway, as opposed to 50-50. And I rarely ever do 3 ways, because sometimes I feel like that's pointless.
Yeah. I mean, you have success with it, and you can go to Taco Bell, maybe Starbucks afterwards.
And I'll be honest with you, I had a couple of cuts that were 3 ways, one of which went top 10, and I'm proud of it. But and this was back. I want to say I made my third of it was, and of course we're talking about. Not publishing, because Tom Collins owned my publishing at the time, but I want to say realistically, it was probably around a little over 100, maybe it was $140,000 ish, something like that, and it went to number 8, maybe, I think. So, so it wasn't terrible money by any stretch of the imagination, man. I was hillbilly rich. I went out and bought me a Ford, and but that's one of those things. I just but you're right. This day and age, imagine writing. Imagine being a third of a song that gets the shit played out of it on Spotify, but it doesn't get played on the radio.
Right.
Okay, so you got all these Spotify listeners that are that love this song, and so many people know it, but it's not a radio hit.
Yeah.
Okay, so the song, and a lot of I have people sometimes send me messages, hey, I love this song, blah, blah, blah. In what way, if I buy this or if I want to, consume this, in what way helps you the most? And thank God for those people that,
absolutely,
that do that, because you can tell them, you can give them a quick little lesson in what, and it's funny. I've got a good story about that I wanted to share with you too. But it's nice that when people do care enough to. But there's a lot of younger people who grew up in a culture where they just figure music's free, man. And I ain't got to pay for this; it's right here.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that they are essentially decimating the careers of countless people in this town.
And it always amazes me that a large number of those people want to be in this business.
Yeah, they do. And it's like, well, you knew the truth, brother, you'd be running the other way.
And you're killing it for yourself.
Yeah.
You're literally streaming your way out of a job.
Gun pointed right at your foot.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a perfect example. And this led into like a business plan and everything. So it was years back. Long story short as possible, I had some success with the Jeans song. Those Jeans. And it's kind of
love that song.
But it's a goofy tune, but I realized as an independent years ago that, if you're going to if you're an indie and you expect to have any kind of success, you got to do something that folks are going to talk about. It could be a great song, it could be a good song. But if it's too much like everything else, it's not going to stand out enough to put you over the top.
Right.
And so I realized years ago, growing up hearing Roger Miller songs through my dad's radio and Jerry Reed and people like that, man, I've got that sort of tongue-in-cheek wit thing that's sort of second nature, and also the recitational, the talky thing. And so I've got a handful of those songs I've written and recorded, but that song I just kind of came up with one night and it was stupid. But I sat on it, and being when you write something by yourself, which I did with that one, sometimes you tend to sit on it for a little while before you share it with anybody, because, you're not bouncing, if I'm sitting in a room with you writing a song and I spit out an idea or a line and I see you get excited about it, then I know there's something to it.
Right.
Well, when you don't have that, sometimes you might second guess it. So
right in front of a mirror, right?
Yeah. So
that guy's excited about it.
That guy looks like a terrorist and he's excited. Holy shit, it's some I've been drinking. But, so I sat on it for a while and I shared it with my friend Dave after 2 weeks. Dave Brainerd, which I'm sure you probably know who Dave is. And Dave, Dave loved it. He said, man, let's record it. And at the time, he had a studio up above, at the time, was
old off-Broadway shoes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dan McGinnis.
Yeah.
Well, we go down to Dan McGinnis and get all beard up and then go up at his studio and record. And we ended up recording this whole CD, album called Reality. And it's, we had that song and I love the way it came out. Dave does some great work, man. He's got some cool ideas. And it just so happened that, John Marks was running Sirius XM at the time. And I was friends also with Stormy Warren, which I still do love Stormy. But, we took that song to John, like, what the hell, because John had been one of my biggest, John had been one of my top 5 markets for my kind of music back in the Warner days in San Diego. He was
John was a music guy.
Yeah. And, so we took it to him. John loved it. And he thought, man, I think this might be something to this. So, I was relatively obscure at this point, man. I hadn't had any real tours or anything going on for a while. Had done, a publishing deal. And that's about it. Was just making my living like that. And, but John, so we had no promo dollars, no nothing to push this thing. John made it a highway find, what they called. Basically, what that meant was 40 to 45 spins a week, I think.
Yeah.
On a station that was national and not just a regional thing, being Sirius XM. And so I went overnight, not necessarily overnight, but in a short amount of time, because of that success, sold a bunch of copies, like a few 100,000 copies of it on iTunes. Okay. This was when iTunes was, ruling the day.
Right.
Digital, Okay. Well, based on that success, and it, all of that was, money that was just free money. We didn't, we weren't paying back.
Weren't recouping anything.
Based on the success of that song, we made a business plan to go into another record. We even went out and got some seed money for it, thinking, okay, well, if we can do this with so-and-so, I had a stack of other songs too. But the next record, man, we had Drinking Beer. We had Ain't Always Thirsty on it. Mm. So I knew I had something there that people would like, because you play these songs for folks and they react, and you just kind of go from there. So we knew, okay, well, if we can get this amount, much money and spend it on this, and this, and we'll put this out. And so we were expecting to at least have the same type of success, or hopefully anyway, based on iTunes. Well, in the meantime of us digging up this business plan and getting it all worked out and recording all the music and everything else, man, iTunes did this. Spotify and the streaming services started doing this, kind of kicking it to the curb, unbeknownst to us. So all of a sudden, all this money we'd spent on actually, trying to promote or put together this album, we had a consultant on board. We had just, we were spending money on publicists. But all of a sudden, our iTunes money hit the road. And so we were kind of left with, well, shit, that didn't work. Now, it didn't stop me from making music, but ever since then, I've recorded cheaply, and my releases have been, based on, and here's another thing. I mean, we did a pledge campaign for the record after that, which was called Guitar for Sale. It worked out well. We had, money to kind of get the recording and everything, and some promotional stuff done after it and whatever else. Well, we did a pledge campaign for the project after that, which was an EP. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if you know what happened with Pledge, but, so, all of a sudden, they owe me, $12,000, $15,000.
Wow.
And, they basically had taken all this money from all of my great fans who, and supporters who contributed and invested towards the cause. Somebody over there decided, well, hell, we ain't going to, I don't know what happened, but we never got our money.
Wow.
So, I mean, as, the perceptions of this in a lot of people's minds, they think that because we're making music, they get to hear the music, we're out there playing or whatever else. I think a lot of folks probably assume that we're doing better financially than some of us truly are.
Right.
I know you mentioned Ward a while ago. I mean, he's out there, he's doing good, but he owes a lot of people. He had a he had a Sprinter van that completely took a shit on him. He's out there with another like a small bus now that broke down on him just a couple of weeks ago. So I mean, and
there's no label paying to have that thing put back on the road.
It's all on you.
If you're not buying a CD or a shirt or a hat or something, there's no money to fix that bus.
Exactly, and a lot of people do understand that. And I probably, like my last run, man, I probably doubled in merch what I made in show pay over a four night run. And that's great, because that's what our goal is. That's what we need to do to be able to kind of keep the lights on.
But you're also very smart in that department. Wit of yours pays off in that, because you don't just sell shit with Ray Scott on it.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I bought 2 things out of the merch store this morning myself.
Oh man, thank you.
I had to have the Wussy Country with the anti-Wussy Country shirt.
That's my best selling T-shirt.
I can imagine that is such a sentiment that I can get it.
Well, it's funny. I had those out a few years ago. Came up with that years ago, and we sold them for a while. And I guess things slowed down. I forgot what happened, but we stopped. My wife, Stacy, who I married 5 years ago, or going on 5 years ago, was just going through an old, like an old chest of mine that had just a bunch of old random stuff in it. And she ran across 2 or 3 of those shirts that I had left over, like mediums. She immediately commandeered them. She wears them all the time. But she said, you need to start selling this again. This is awesome, And I didn't even think about it. And so we did. I'm like, baby, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't know shit. So
take over. So,
I try to be smart about things. I think there's some things I'm smart about, but there's, that's why it's good to have a team of people. Actually, I got a manager named Brian Cruz who has got some incredible instincts for the business. He's been extremely helpful in booking shows because he's been in that world. He's also kind of a show buyer, promoter. So he knows his stuff in that, and that's a big part of this, man. I mean, when you're not a big, huge, radio star, whatever else, there's levels to this, and so he's a guy that has been not only willing but very capable of getting in the trenches and kind of getting some stuff figured out and creating some energy with this that continues to build, and we've got other people on board. I've got an assistant named Adriana, who is a Belmont graduate. She is millennial, but she is not the stereotype. I mean, she is the most sensible. She's smart. Sometimes she looks at me like, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? I mean, you don't you realize that I'm smarter than you and you need to be ruling the, you need to be listening to me, boy. It's, but she works her ass off. You can tell she comes from a really great upbringing and they, they taught her well and she's definitely not, but what sucks is she's got these, she owes all this money for her education now, these loans that are just, and she told me, I won't say what it was, but she told my wife and I one time, I guess, how much she owes. And I'm like, Jesus, how are you ever going to get out from under this? I mean,
I know I've got one going next year and it's like, what? Yeah. That it costs what?
I want to tell Dree, you need to go see if you can get Elizabeth Warren to adopt you.
Exactly. I mean, or just,
don't vote for her.
Don't vote for her. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's like, that is my huge problem with the Belmonts is like your graduate, they're not prepared to go out and their age. And this device, this phone right here, it provides more of an education and experience for what they need to have a successful career than anything in college.
To her credit, she knows her way around a lot of this. So being the age I am and everything, and kind of coming from the era that I did, obviously some of this stuff does not come to me as easily and as naturally as somebody who's younger. So she's been very helpful in that respect. And in her case, like I said, I mean, I think a lot of the Belmont students with the entitlement issues are the ones who went to Belmont and mama and daddy paid for it all.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I've got a good little team of people that help out and kind of cover the bases. And my job, obviously, is to just kind of go out and continue to try to win people over whenever I get those opportunities. And it's not always the most, attractive situation. I go into some places some nights and think, Jesus, why did we do that?
Right.
But,
don't you have to go through, isn't it almost like the whole theory of you got to hear so many no's before a yes? And it's like you got to go through so many of those.
Well, and that never stops, man. I've been doing this for years. I mean, there are good nights and there are bad nights. I don't care. I mean, Jason Aldean could be out there and maybe one night he's got 300,000. The next night he's got maybe 175. And it's like, God damn it, man. We might as well quit, man.
No, I mean, that's a serious thing. But I think what I'm excited about is when I look around, I think that the demand is increasing for what it is that you do. And
I think so.
The audience, and it's almost funny because we're not growing any more older people.
No.
It is the younger people that I'm surprised, like driving around this last summer, I would pull up next to a teenager, and you would expect, not what I heard coming out of the car, but I heard Clay Walker. I heard early 90s country. I heard Tracy Lawrence. And it's like, okay, maybe, just maybe, we are at the bottom of that circle and things are coming back around.
Indicator that this style of things is at least coming back. It is making a circle. And there's some new guys. I mean, you got John Party out there fighting the good fight. And I think of all those guys, I'd say he's probably the number one guy. If I'm not thinking of someone else. Yeah,
there was William Michael Morgan.
Yeah,
for a little bit.
And I know he's about to release something new. My friend Moose produced or co-produced.
Is Jim working on that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
He said they've been working on it since 2018.
Wow.
But so, obviously he's great. I mean, that kid's phenomenal. Who else? Let's see. I mean, there's a few, and I'm hearing rumblings of newer guys that are kind of coming up now that haven't quite been thrust into the spotlight yet,
right,
that are the same. So I do know the industry is taking a chance on some new guys like that, and I think they felt after all these years of people being resistant to some of the shit they were putting out. I mean, I think they're finally listening a little bit more and willing to take a chance on it. We'll see. We'll see what that chance looks like. I mean, it could be a situation where, I think with William Michael, for one, I don't know the real story there, but I know he was with Warner. I feel like, he had a hit with that first single that I Met a Girl.
Great
song.
Yeah.
Cool song. I loved it. And I don't know what happened after that. I mean, I wonder if they just sort of started doing the whole paralysis through analysis thing.
Totally. They did their thing.
They sit in the conference room, and if 8 people believe in it, one guy says, "Yeah, I'm not so sure." Then the other 8 are like, "Oh, yeah, you may be right. Maybe it sucks."
No, that's exactly
right. People do that. But
well, I'm hoping that at some point the industry is going to realize that if you ever, and it may even be impossible at this point, but if you ever want to sell music again, you're going to have to market it to people who can afford to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
12 to 17-year-olds can't. That's why they stream it or steal it.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, and that's why I still get CDs printed up, because I can sell CDs on the road quite a bit.
Yeah.
And folks do order them from my website, and that's great, because I do know that a big part of my following are older people, and I'm also really pleasantly surprised to see that I have quite a few young ones on board too. It's interesting, I mean, I think. I think this style of music has appeal across the board. It's not just for old people, but it is for thinking people.
Totally.
Or folks that want to try something new.
Well, and I think too, they're
force fed.
I think beyond force fed, I think people are longing for substance again.
Yeah.
There's you turn on the radio, and it's nothing against what the artists are putting out today. But it's a ditty. It's a 3.5 minute commercial, and it's not. There's no substance. There's no. Music used to mark our lives, and it doesn't anymore. And it's
and the funny thing is my first song, and still the one that I end every show on, was exactly that. It was a ditty, my kind of music. It was Bill Bennett at the time, who was running Warner Brothers, kind of saw it as almost a commercial for country music. And in some respects, yeah, that's right. I mean, it was also kind of that, but based on sort of a funny story.
Exactly.
But it kind of was an introduction, and I agreed with it being the first single. I thought, well, that's I know it'll stand out.
Right.
Sometimes when you release the ditties like that, you don't have much control over what people latch on to.
Well, I would not put my kind of country in the
music.
my kind of music in the category of country girl shake it for me.
No, yeah. But the thing is when it comes to the stylus on the type, I mean, I have one unfortunate thing that I've seen, and it's my own fault, but one unfortunate thing is I tend to be known for, and look, when people follow me on Facebook or whatever else, I mean, they know I'm full of shit. And some of these songs are kind of twisted or whatever else. But sometimes I do feel like, I'm more known for that type of stuff. And I think, well, I'm not just a one-trick pony. It just so happens is that's the trick you saw when the pony walked by, But
in context, though, I did it this morning. I was sitting in there I was playing a bunch of your old videos and songs and stuff. I guess my point is you can go from Those Jeans to Ain't Always Thirsty, and you've not left the book.
Yeah.
It's just another chapter in the book. Yeah. And that fits to me. Those two things go together. When I think of country music, I think of the music that I like, that I want to listen to. Those to me are in the same category. I don't go, well, one's kind of a novelty.
Yeah.
It's not like you're Rodney fucking Carrington.
No, exactly.
Big difference.
Yeah. And I, the thing is I've got those things, but I don't record all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, I think probably the two songs that are the furthest over on that edge of things are probably, The Ugly One. And there's another song I have called She's Still Screaming My Name that, is a little slightly dirty, but but when you're an independent, I mean, I got nobody telling me what to do.
Exactly.
If I know that people are, look, hey, music is entertainment and laughing is a big part of it. So, well,
there's no money and there's no, as an independent, I think there's no money in trying to hit the bullseye.
No.
The money's in the target.
Yeah.
As many arrows as you can put in the target. That's all that matters. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's a couple of other songs, the way we recorded them sounded really cool, but there's no way in hell I can emulate that live.
Right.
So,
sure.
But I've learned, I used to have the thought process that, well, I want to record it in a way that I can play it live. I want it to be,
right.
But since then I've kind of gotten to a point where it's like, well, hey, you play it live one way, you record it another way, you're giving people a choice.
That's right. Yeah.
So my stance on that's changed a little bit, but, man, I'm just happy to still be coming up with things that I'm proud of, and that whole feeling of going into the studio with new songs is still, I mean, it excites me like a teenager, just like it did the first time I did it. So, I feel like as long as that feeling stays, man, I mean, there's really no sense in hanging it up,
I don't blame you. New record comes out. Tell people about it, where they can find it. I know you can pre-order it on your site, rayscott.com.
Rayscott.com. It is called Nowhere Near Done, because I am nowhere near done. And it's a 6-song EP. There is actually one song on it called I Will. That is a little bit of a collaboration with my buddy Ward Davis.
Awesome.
He came in and actually co-wrote that with me. And So, I'm anxious to get it out there. It's a little bit different. This record as a whole is probably a little bit more introspective across the board. There's really no goofy songs on it. Not that I don't have any, but that's just the way it felt.
That's the next record.
Nowhere Near Done, y'all. I would sincerely appreciate you checking it out. Pre-ordered, if you will. I do need some new wheels for my house, y'all. So please buy all you can. We will have new face T-shirts too coming out. I had a face T-shirt for a while, and I always tell people this. If you don't like my face, you can turn it inside out, and I can motorboat it.
Always thinking of the creative ways to sell the merch, right?
Hey, that always sells a few.
Well, go to rayscott.com. You can find all of his tour dates. You probably, I don't know, there may be some people listening in Switzerland or Austria. So y'all get tickets for that show, but you've also got Durham, North Carolina, Bremen, Georgia, Fort Lauderdale for a series of dates.
We're in the process right now of getting a whole lot more confirmed, so we'll be adding new dates any day now. So
and follow you everywhere on social media.
Yeah, I'm at the official Ray Scott page on Facebook, on Ray Scott Music, on Instagram. Twitter is at RealityCheck, and RayScott.com, as you said.
I got to be honest, man. I can't fucking do Twitter.
You know, man.
I get on there and it just pisses me off.
I don't much. I think of all the, and I think Twitter has kind of been, a little less popular for a while now.
Yeah.
Twitter, it seems like Twitter is for people that want to bitch about, folks bitch about politics a lot on Facebook.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Twitter seems to be where they really go at one another.
Man, I got to be honest with you. I did something, I don't know, maybe it was a month ago now. I went in and deleted 2,500 friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
And now my Facebook experience is so much different.
Really?
I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in forever that I was wondering, like, what the fuck happened to so-and-so? Well, they didn't go anywhere. Facebook just chose not to.
How long did it take you to decide who to delete or whatever? Because I've thought about that too, because I know I don't interact with all these people.
Well, I went through it with my typical mentality. I started scrolling. Now, fuck you. Fuck you. I don't give a shit about you. I really don't like you. I don't like you either. Because we do this thing in the industry where, and I fucking hate it. And I call people out. So-and-so has a birthday, like Cindy Foreman's birthday. Mm-hmm. And you see all these fucking little bullshit songwriters. Happy birthday, Cindy. It's like, shit, I know who the fuck you are. Yeah. You don't know her. And I hate that. So I went through and I eliminated every single person that I'd ever seen do anything like that I don't really like in person. If I wouldn't talk to you, if I wouldn't share a cup of coffee with you, or if I don't want to be in the room with you physically, you're fucking gone.
Well, I think I think we're getting to a point, or at least me, and a lot of people I know, with social media, I've gotten so saturated with all the negativity and things like that your use of it changes. The way I'm affected by people and their opinions and whatever else. I used to be one that wouldn't mind a little sparring with somebody, but after a while you realize, man, that shit just jacks up your blood pressure, man.
It really does,
and you don't need that. You don't need that in your life.
No.
There's a lot of people that got big old balls sitting behind a keyboard,
Exactly.
I'd like to see how big those balls would be sitting right in front of me sometimes,
Very small. Very small.
Not that I want to look at anybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wasn't going to touch that, but
Exactly.
Ray, man, thanks so much for being here, brother. Best of luck on the new record coming out. Everybody go to rayscott.com. Pre-order it now. Make sure you get your copy. Buy you some merch, because here's the thing. I get sick and tired of hearing people talk about where are real artists? Where is the real music? Not even just country, but where are people that are making real music? Ray's one of them. And in order for him to continue to be able to do that, you guys have to support these artists. You can't be the ones to blame because we don't have great music out in the marketplace. So go to rayscott.com, check out the tour dates. If he's going to be anywhere near you, go see him, support him. That's what I call a fan, is somebody that buys the record, buys a ticket, buys a shirt. Support the artist. If you want great music, you have to make sure that it's there and that it stays there. Ray, thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.